BC government is going to produce their budget later on this week. And libertarians have a real problem with this. You go looking through this, it's full of all kinds of expenditures on all kinds of things that, well, we just don't agree with. We think that most government services should be privatized. We've got to find a way for people who use them to pay for those services. Now, that's going to be really difficult because we've scrambled this egg and it's really kind of hard to put it back into its shell. But as much as possible, we want people to start paying for the services they receive directly from government, because that's the only way that they can tell whether they're getting the services that they're willing to pay for. Right now, everybody thinks, oh, government services, I want as much as I can, but I want to pay as little as possible. And then we have to elect politicians who are going to lie to us by promising us things that are impossible. Cheap payment for fantastic services. No, we've got to return it back to individual payment for the services they want. It's the only way for us to tell whether we're getting good value for what we're willing to pay for. So I've been thinking about how do we get from where we are now to what libertarians want. And like any company who wants to get into any kind of a service, first you got to figure out what you're willing to pay for. So come up with some kind of budget of maybe some intermediate things that's going to be difficult for us to separate into individual payment services. Come up with some number, and then let's find the tax that is the least harmful in getting there. Taxes have three kinds of costs. The first cost is administrative costs. That's the cost of the government of collecting the money. So if you employ tons of tax collectors out there, you've got to pay their salaries to collect the tax. That's an expensive tax. The second type of cost is compliance cost. That is, what do individuals have to pay in time and effort to pay that tax? And that's where income tax comes in as something really horrible. Just think of all the receipts you have to collect, all the advice you have to get, plus the time you spend in trying to figure out how to, reduce your taxes in this area. The compliance cost of an income tax is really high. And the third type of cost of the tax is what we call efficiency cost, or distortion tax. And there are some products that we want that we're going to pay a high price for, put a tax on that. Not going to change your consumption of that good very much. That kind of a tax on that good is not going to be too distortionate. But if you have a product where you really stop buying if the price goes up even a couple pennies, that's going to cause a big distortion if you put a tax on this item. So we live in a real world. Nothing is perfect. How do we go about, if the government still has to have some kind of a minimal budget, what kind of tax should we advise to pay for this type of collection? And I'm convinced that the least distortionate tax is probably some kind of a value-added tax. Well, we have that in Canada now. It's called a GST. We have the former leader of the Libertarian Party of Canada who really opposed this type of tax. And I can see his argument that he didn't want to be an unpaid tax collector for the government of this service. But yet, in a way, this tax causes less damage to the economy than other types of taxes. The worst tax by far is an income tax. Just think of all the liars we've created in Canada, efforts to try to to reduce that type of a tax, and all the costs it's just distorted our lives incredibly. So right now, if the government wants to raise the money that they get from for their budgets, what is it now? 42% of the GDP is raised in taxes. So can you imagine a 42% value-added tax in Canada? Europe's around 20% now. People don't oppose it because it's hidden. Here in Canada, people complain about the 5% value-added tax that they see, So I can't imagine a 42% visible value-added tax, but if you want the government services you get from government right now, that's what you'd have to change to. And then you got the problem now where a lot of our government services is on redistribution. We're taking from people who earn more and give it to people who earn less. And I mean, that's the type of tax that libertarians really oppose. If you want to help your fellow man, please use your own money to do it, but don't force people to give charity to other people. It's just not right. We'd hope that thanks to the internet, there might be ways for us to directly fund people that we want to support, because people's ideas of deserving charity are all different. We have all kinds of different values of who we want to help and who we don't want to help. So there is no single best way to deliver welfare. I have admiration for Milton Friedman's attempt to come up with some way of using the tax system to produce a negative income tax. Because it's true, coming up with what we have now, an alphabet soup of programs to help people that we think need help. All those bureaucrats involved, wouldn't it make a lot more sense just to use the income tax system to give them that money? And yet, there's something in humans that we don't want that money to go to people that we think don't deserve it. And the lump sum payment of a negative income tax, I guess, is unjust because it's going to go to people that we probably don't want to support. So it's expensive to determine who might deserve our help and might not deserve our help. I think the only way to do this is to have a whole bunch of private intermediaries trying to find the people that people are willing to support and helping them. Perhaps the way that internet can raise money is going to help in that case, but I guess it's kind of like the World Wildlife Fund, right? All the money goes to panda bears and polar bears, and none of it goes to maybe the snails and the birds that really affect humans more. And I guess the same thing would happen with a private fundraising service. So let's go back. Nothing is perfect. So we want the least worst type of system. And the least worst type of system is probably some value-added tax at some low level. Making it visible is good because it keeps the government on its toes. To replace income tax and a whole bunch of taxes on a whole bunch of other things. If we bring it in or maybe 20%, it would cut government in half as a halfway step. I would hope that that would be something that libertarians would support on a way to a better, more individual future that we would really look up to in the future.